The warning was written in faded ink on the back of a torn notebook page. It looked old enough to have survived years of forgotten shelves. 3 shaky words were scrawled across the paper. "Don't play, Charlie." Beneath the warning, someone had drawn a strange symbol. 2 pencils crossed over a square, divided into 4 sections. The drawing looked simple, yet something about it felt deeply wrong. Daniel discovered the page while cleaning dust from the back corner of the school library. The forgotten shelves were filled with old textbooks and abandoned notebooks. When he picked up the page, the paper felt strangely cold. He turned it over slowly, studying the crude drawing. The crossed pencils made him remember something from years ago. A strange internet game people used to whisper about. During lunch, Daniel showed the page to his friends. He tossed it onto the table with a playful grin. To him, it looked like nothing more than an old prank. Maria leaned closer to the paper. The moment she saw the crossed pencils, her smile faded slightly. She recognized the symbol immediately. "That's from the Charlie game," she whispered quietly. The others stopped talking for a moment. Even the noisy cafeteria seemed to fade around them. Everyone at the table had heard the legend before. It was a simple ritual with 2 pencils and a sheet of paper. Supposedly, it allowed a spirit named Charlie to answer questions. Lucas rolled his eyes at the story. He said the game was just another silly internet myth. According to him, the pencils moved because of tiny vibrations. Still, Lucas kept glancing at the paper as he spoke. Something about the warning made him uneasy. The shaky handwriting looked more frightened than playful. Maria remembered reading strange stories about the game online. People claimed that things changed after playing it. Some said shadows followed them home. Others said the spirit never truly left. Daniel laughed at the idea. His voice echoed strangely in the quiet corner of the cafeteria. The strange notebook page stayed on the table for the rest of lunch. None of them admitted it, but curiosity had already begun growing. The mystery felt too tempting to ignore. By the end of the day, Lucas suggested they test the game themselves. He wanted to prove the whole legend was fake. The others hesitated, but curiosity slowly won. They decided to play after school. Their building would be nearly empty by then. An abandoned classroom at the end of the hallway seemed perfect. Dark clouds covered the sky as the final bell rang. A cold wind rattled the windows of the school. The empty hallways felt strangely quiet. Maria kept thinking about the warning on the page. The words "Don't play, Charlie" echoed inside her mind, yet she still followed the others. The classroom door creaked open slowly. Dust filled the air like drifting smoke. Old desks were stacked along the walls. A broken chalkboard still carried faded writing from years ago. The room felt colder than the rest of the school. Maria rubbed her arms nervously. Daniel pulled a blank sheet of paper from his backpack. He placed it on the teacher's desk. Slowly, he drew a cross dividing the page into 4 squares. In each corner, he wrote the words "yes" and "no." The letters looked darker than the rest of the paper. The simple setup suddenly felt unsettling. Lucas placed 2 pencils on the paper. One rested flat, while the other balanced across it. The top pencil wobbled slightly before becoming still. The friends gathered around the desk. Their shadows stretched across the dusty walls. No one laughed now. Outside, the wind slammed against the windows. The sound echoed through the empty hallway. It made the building feel abandoned. Maria hesitated before speaking. She asked if they were truly sure about this. Her voice sounded small in the silent room. Daniel shrugged with a forced grin. He insisted it was just a harmless game. The others leaned closer to the desk. Lucas cleared his throat nervously. He stared at the crossed pencils. Then he spoke the familiar question. Charlie, are you here?" For several seconds, nothing happened. The pencils remained perfectly still. Daniel began to chuckle quietly. Then the top pencil twitched. The movement was small but impossible to ignore. Everyone froze. The pencil slowly turned. A soft scraping sound followed the motion. It rotated until it pointed at "yes." The room suddenly felt colder. Their breath became faint white mist. No one dared speak. Lucas quickly grabbed the pencil and knocked it away. It clattered loudly across the desk. The sudden noise shattered the silence. "Game over," Lucas muttered quickly. His voice sounded forced. The others nodded nervously. They packed their bags and left the classroom. The hallway lights flickered above them. Maria thought she heard footsteps behind them. Outside, the night air felt warmer. They laughed nervously about this strange moment, yet none of them truly felt relaxed. When Daniel reached home, his bedroom door stood slightly open. He was sure he had closed it earlier. A cold draft drifted from the dark room. Maria lay awake, staring at her ceiling. A faint scratching sound came from her desk. It sounded like pencils moving. When she looked closer, the 2 pencils from the game lay crossed on her desk. She was certain they had been inside her backpack. Her heart began to race. The next morning, none of them looked well rested. Dark circles hung under their eyes. An uneasy silence surrounded them. Daniel finally spoke first. He admitted his door had opened during the night. The room had been freezing cold. Lucas tried to laugh it off. He blamed old houses and noisy pipes. Still, his voice sounded uneasy. Maria told them about the pencils on her desk. The others exchanged worried looks. None of them had an explanation. They decided to research the origin of the game. After school, they returned to the library. Dust filled the quiet room. Hours passed before Maria found something unusual. An old history book mentioned a boy named Charlie. The story was nearly a century old. Charlie had lived near the town's woods. People had said he practiced strange rituals. The villagers feared him. Animals were sometimes found dead near the forest. Strange symbols appeared carved into trees. Rumors about Charlie spread quickly. One night, the boy vanished. Villagers searched the woods for him. They found a ritual circle drawn in the dirt. 2 crossed sticks lay at the center of the markings. Charlie himself was never found. After that night, strange whispers began spreading. People believed his spirit had become trapped. The crossed sticks became part of a ritual game, a way to speak with the lost boy. The friends slowly realized the horrifying truth. Their game had repeated the same ritual. Something had answered. That night, the haunting began growing stronger. Lucas woke to a tapping sound. It echoed softly through his room. He turned on his lamp quickly. Nothing seemed unusual at first, but the pencils on his desk were crossed again. Daniel stared at his bathroom mirror later that night. A thin crack ran across the glass. Something was written in the fog. The letters slowly formed a name. Charlie. Daniel wiped the mirror, but the name returned. Maria woke to whispering voices. They repeated questions softly in her ear. The sound felt impossibly close. She turned on the lamp. The whispers stopped instantly, but small handprints appeared on her window. They slid slowly down the glass, as if something unseen stood outside. Maria covered her mouth in terror. Next day, the friends gathered again. Their fear was impossible to hide now. Each story sounded worse than the last. They realized something terrifying. Every strange event followed a question asked during the game. The spirit was reacting. It seemed to grow stronger each time they spoke to it. The only way to stop it was to play again, and needed answers. That night they met in Daniel's basement. The room smelled of dust and wood. A single bulb flickered above them. Maria placed a new sheet of paper on the table. Her hands trembled as she drew the cross again. The ritual had begun. Lucas placed the pencils carefully. The top one balanced perfectly. A cold wind suddenly filled the basement. Daniel checked the windows quickly. Everything was closed tightly. The room felt heavier. Maria leaned forward slowly. Her voice shook as she spoke. Charlie, Charlie, are you here? The pencil rotated again. It scraped softly across the paper. It stopped at YES. Daniel forced himself to ask another question. Charlie, will you leave us alone? His voice trembled. The pencil spun violently this time. When it stopped, it pointed at no. A loud noise echoed upstairs. Footsteps ran across the ceiling. The basement door rattled. Fear filled the room. Maria asked one final question. Charlie, are you the one doing this? Her voice barely existed. The pencil moved slowly again. It stopped at no. The room fell silent. A cold whisper filled the basement. It sounded faint and childlike. The words were barely audible. Charlie only opens the door.